Welcome, welcome, welcome back, and happy New Year to all of our viewers, all of our followers, all of our supporters, everybody who's in the Neighborhood Medical Center family. Happy New Year, happy New Year, happy New Year. Um, Thank you for joining Mind, Your Body, and Soul. This is one of the first podcasts that we have of this year. I hope you had a chance to view our last podcast where we interviewed Miss Trinice Roberts, and she is an advocate for women being able to tell their stories when dealing with certain situations that may lead to unwanted pregnancy. So just giving women resources that they need and safe spaces to be able to tell their story. So make sure you check that one out. This is on this channel. But remember, this is Mind Your Body and Soul. And Mind Your Body and Soul is an educational podcast that focuses on all things health related to help our listeners learn more about various health topics and information they may not have access to. We seek to inform, empower, uplift, and mobilize our listeners to become the healthiest versions of themselves. And you can catch us on our website at www.nmcpodcast.com. You can also view us on our parental website at www.neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org. Also, through podcast realms, we're available on Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Google Podcasts. And once again, remember this YouTube channel. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. All right. So today's guest, I'm excited because today's guest is a real valuable resource in our Tallahassee community. So I work for Neighborhood Medical Center, and my location specifically is on Brevard Street in the heart of Frenchtown. There is, let's say, about a 2-minute walk from here, the Grace Mission. The Grace Mission is a place that I have observed throughout my life. I'm from here in Tallahassee, so I've observed throughout my life this place giving back to the community. I've observed this place serving members of the community who may not have been able to get served in other places. I see people giving their time, volunteering their time, giving their resources, doing what they can to make sure that people within our communities who may be underserved or who may not have access to services at all, to make sure that those people have access to something. And that an organization like that definitely warms my heart. So our guest today is the Reverend Rachel Hill of the Grace Mission, and I met her at an alternative Christmas market event about a month ago. Well, yeah, late December, an alternative Christmas market event. We got to talking, and when I realized that she worked at the Grace Mission, I was like, oh, we have to connect. We have to find ways that we can help each other because I love what you guys are doing. You guys are definitely a blessing to this community, and we want to make sure that we are a part of it. But I also want to extend our platform, so that's why we have Reverend Hill on here today. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thanks, Joseph. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, no problem. So, we want to start with learning more about the Grace Mission. So, could you give us some background information about the Grace Mission, and also how did you become a part of the Grace Mission?
Okay. So Grace Mission has been, well, it was founded about 25 years ago by Pastor Michael and Sterling Henderson and a group of people from their church who had a real heart for living out their Christian faith and serving those in need just as an expression of their love of God and love of their neighbor. And so they started the mission, and over the last 25 years, it is basically a church, but it is a church that serves the people in the Frenchtown and downtown community in very practical ways. So we're a church, we have our Sunday worship, but during the week, we're very much engaged in caring for people's immediate needs. So that could be food, it could be clothing, it could be hot showers, could be just giving them a safe space that they can come into and fall asleep after spending all night wide awake in the bus shelter. So there's lots of practical ways that we provide a safe space, and we try and reach out to people in that way. After Pastor Michael and Pastor Sterling retired, we had Pastor Amanda and Pastor Jenny. Lots of people come in who've not been in for a while, and they ask me, where's so-and-so, where's so-and-so? So there's a long history of relationship between the people at Grace Mission and the community, and even those who are coming in for a short period transitory. And so it's a church, and it's a church that is trying to serve those most in need in the community. And I came in about 18 months ago. How did I get there? So I've been a missionary since 1986. I'm from England. I've spent 4 years in England since 1986, and the rest of my life has been spent primarily in Latin America, in Uruguay, in Peru, and in the US some of the time. So now I consider myself a missionary here in Tallahassee. Yes. Doing what I'm doing. I feel tremendously privileged to be doing what I'm doing. One of the things that is good, you mentioned what you'd witnessed from the outside. What I witnessed from the inside is this is a place where many, many, many people from different churches, different secular organizations, the universities, they come together to serve those in need. So, people have different reasons for doing it, but there's a common goal to come, to love people, to care for people, to practically serve people. Everything we have and we give are mainly donations. We don't actually have a food budget. We're well supported by Second Harvest. Yes. And some restaurants in town, different places supply us with food. And individuals will come the food as well. So we use that to provide warm meals. We do hot meals on Thursdays, Thursday lunchtimes, Sunday evenings after church. We do a hot breakfast on Wednesdays before Bible study. And ultimately, we'd like to serve more, but at this point, we're still trying to put in place the right staff and the right volunteers to be able to facilitate that. Right. So it's quite miraculous, really, the clothing supply that we have. We have a clothing closet. Once a month, we do a great big clothing giveaway, and anyone can come. The clothes are free. You get what you need. You often find things that you really love, and people are just, they just love to come and sit, have a meal. What I've found is when we first came, it was right at the end of COVID, and people would come, get their bag lunch, not speak to you, and kind of leave. Right. And we started putting out some tables to encourage people to sit and gather and talk to each other. And now when you come on a Thursday, what you'll see is a bunch of friends come to get together. They'll sit, they'll have their meal. We know them all by name. They know us by name. There's a community forming that's really, really special. And in conversation with the Kearney Center, when I first arrived, one of the things they said was, a lot of folks will come through the shelter. They'll get their own apartment, and then a few months later they'll be back. And the reason they're back is because they're lonely. They're in their apartment, and all their friends are back in the shelter. So they want somewhere, they want to be with their friends. And they said one of the best things the churches could do in this area, and other organizations like the Senior Center or whatever, is to create alternate community spaces where people know that they're going to find their friends and get together with their friends. And so we've been very intentional about building up that aspect of who we are and what we do. And I love it. I love it because we truly have a community, and we're trying to make the third Thursday, when we do the big giveaway and lunch, into a kind of hub of resources. So a bit like what you do at the community center. Yes. So I recently had a hairdresser offer to come cut hair. We had last year, Leon County Health Department was coming to give vaccinations until their funding ran out. We have a CVS that wants to start coming to do vaccination. Ability First, the social worker from them. We have the Big Ben Cares, the HIV testing and counseling service. Also, they were coming last year. So my goal would be to create a space where people know that, if they need to talk to somebody about making an appointment for Appalachee, or if they need to get their meds a new prescription, sometimes they come off their meds because they just never got around to ordering their prescription. So it's like, how can we make things easy so that people can just live their lives to the best possible standard that they're able to live them. And all of that is to say, beyond all of that, you guys are mind, body, and I don't know if you said mind, body, and spirit, but we care about people's spirits. We care about their spiritual lives. We care about them finding peace with God. We care about them growing in their inner being as well as their outer being. So, we're very intentional about sharing our faith and what we can offer people.
So I love your response. I really do love your response. And one of the main things I'm getting out of, and I'm going to just want to say this first part, is looking into the camera. Okay, Tallahassee, my Tallahassee community organizations, my Tallahassee resources. This is where we come together. This is where we are seeing an organization who is giving back to the community, and an organization who, like many other organizations, we need resources. But this is where we come together and make sure that we pour our resources into organizations that we know are serving our community. So this is one of the main reasons that we're having this interview as well. So those who don't know about the Grace Mission, now you know. And before this interview is over, you will have all the means to be able to contact. But so as far as volunteers, because you have a lot of people volunteer. I know when I ride by sometime, I see volunteers out helping set up, serving food. Let me make this statement before I ask that question, so I won't forget. But I do want to say, every third Thursday of the month, we do a food drive here at the Lincoln Center. And a lot of times we do have food left over sometimes. So we will start bringing you guys some of this food.
Thank you.
We will make sure we do this. But this is going to come out in a couple of days, but I just want to say this now. You're more than welcome to come by tomorrow. We start at 11. More than welcome to come by. However we need to do it to make sure you guys can get some of this food as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
But as far as volunteering, what's the process of becoming a volunteer, and what type of specific duties do you guys have the volunteers doing?
So we are building up at the moment our team of volunteers, and it's a process, because we had to, after COVID, Grace had been closed for the first time in its history for almost 18 months over COVID, and that was hard for a lot of people who really care about the ministry there and care about the people we serve. There was a real sense of loss because of that. So when we came back after COVID, we've had to slowly get things built back up. So we're still in that process of building it up and expanding to what I hope will be full steam ahead. But we talk one-on-one to volunteers. We have a form for people to fill out. We try to see who they are, what their gifts are that they bring to the table, and how that matches up with some of our needs. So we have volunteers who come in to help cook food. They work under our chef. And we have volunteers who come in to help rotate the food and keep the food pantry organized, that kind of stuff. We have a Wednesday fabulous group of women who come in and work on sorting all the clothing donations. So they will sort things that we can definitely use. If we get children's things or baby things, they'll often get sent on to Goodwill or to the Breon House or one of the organizations that needs that particular thing. And so they do all the sorting. If we didn't have those volunteers in, we couldn't be providing clothes, because we'd be under a mountain of clothes. Then we have people who come in to man the showers. So we do showers Wednesday and Fridays by appointment. You sign up after church on Sunday. You just sign the list. We have a limited number of spots, but thankfully Kearney is reopening its day center. So if people need a shower, there are other places that people can go. So we have volunteers who come in, they'll give everybody their towel, clean underwear, clean t-shirt, socks, all the toiletries they need, and then in between showers they'll clean out the whole shower room. So some volunteers do that. We have volunteers who come in to drive the bus for us, who, on a Sunday they'll go backwards and forwards to Carney Center. The gentleman we have at the moment is just retired, a professor from FAMU, and he just loves coming in and taking care of all of our folks and getting them home at the end of the service. So, different people have different abilities. So we also have tasks, sort of like ongoing tasks, like maintaining the outside of the building. Very soon we're going to need to repaint the entire outside with elastomeric paint. That's the kind of thing that then we need to bring in a big team for. So there's some things that we have people serving food Sunday nights. We usually have about 10 people in to help serve the food, clean up the meal. But occasionally we've got a team coming in a couple of weeks from a house church that are going to clear out a whole area of the building and then put up plyboard, and there's a lot of guys who are into building. So, that's a perfect match for
Right.
What we need. And you think, well, what's that got to do with what you're doing? Well, every little bit of that helps us do what we do. Some of it is organizing, some of it is updating, some of it is office stuff. I mean, we just have a bunch of stuff that needs to be done. We have a staff of 5. So I'm the only full-time person on the staff. I have 4 part-time people, a bookkeeper, a chef, a volunteer coordinator, and my building manager. And then we have some very faithful volunteers. And we couldn't do it without them, just the same as we couldn't do it without the donations that come in.
Right. And so I do want to introduce you, Reverend Hill, to this is Matthias Sweet. He's the director of our Ryan White HIV/AIDS program here at Neighborhood Medical Center.
Hey, Matthias.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Same here.
I know I came on late, and I do apologize for being late, but is there any certain criteria that they need to meet to come into the shelter? Is it just a men's shelter? Is it just women? I mean...
Okay, so and I apologize because you had asked me what did people need to do to volunteer, and I didn't actually answer that. But you can contact us on the phone number that we have outside, and there's our volunteer coordinator is Miss Brenda Christie, and what she does is we'll send you a form or we'll give you a form to fill in, and then based on that we'll talk and discuss where you might be a good match. So that finishes that question. We're not a shelter, so we're not the same as Carney. We don't sleep people inside. We're a church, and we have day services that we can offer people. So we welcome everybody. We respect everybody, and it's very it's been wonderful to see the response of people to the love and respect we're showing them, because they respond most of the time with just a gentle spirit, with a very respectful spirit. And so you say, is there any criteria? We don't stop somebody coming in, and in the year and a half that I've been there, I've only twice had to ask somebody to leave. And so we welcome people, and there are times oftentimes, if we can eat outside, we'll serve the meal outside. Just because of COVID and because of the flu, we just try and keep things as safe for everybody as possible. If COVID spikes, when people come to church, everybody wears a mask, and we do it to take care of each other, not because
I like that.
It's because we want to take care of each other. And so nobody complains. We just get on with it and do what we need to do to keep everybody safe. We're serving a very vulnerable population, especially those on the streets. COVID or the flu is unpleasant enough if you've got a nice warm bed to sleep in, but when you're sleeping rough, you don't want that. So so that's, there's no criteria. I know that we serve people who have recently come out of being incarcerated. We serve people who have mental health difficulties. We serve people who suffer from addiction. people who find themselves at this time without a home, and we love them. They're part of our community, and we see them finding a place, and people who will hold their hand as they try and get to a better place, in whatever way, shape, or form that takes. Now, we can't do so much of what people need. So there are times that we will take somebody to the Appalachee Center, or that we will point somebody to different services around, like Echo or City Walk, or, there's so many great services around that we know we can't do it all. We do what we can do, which is a lot of the face-to-face, caring for people, encouraging people, advising people, praying for people, and then we help them find the resources that they need. There's just some great resources around.
Right. Now that's amazing. And it's incredible as well. It's like you say, you have a staff of 5, you're the only full-time person, and then volunteers and donations. And so it's important, and it's important for people to volunteer, but it's also important for the opportunities to be there. And once again, echo into our audience, there are volunteering echoes at the Grace Mission. There are volunteering echoes. So one thing you mentioned earlier is some of the persons who may come around, they may leave, I think you said the Kernison, they may leave the Kernison or not want to be there or they may want to go back, or whatever environment that their friends are in. And then over time, you guys have been able to create more of a friend or family atmosphere. So when you first started observing that these people really needed that atmosphere, that family atmosphere, how did you guys go about observing that, and not just observing it, but acting upon to creating your environment to more family environment? So the people who come that you serve, they're coming back and they're happy, and they're feeling wanted. They have that feeling of love.
Sure. Gosh, that's a good question. So I think, it's a bit like you look at Martin Luther King, and you say, what was it that drove him or motivated him in his preaching and in his, what he was calling people to, his prophetic voice. And oftentimes what's left out of the conversation is his deep faith. And, so often his sermons or his speeches are full of scripture. And so what I would say is, at the heart of who we are and what we do, at the heart of our identity at Grace Mission, is our faith. And so one of the Bible verses that I love the most is from Isaiah 43, in which God says, "You are precious in my sight and honored, and I love you." And so with the staff from the very beginning, I said, this is the message that every single person who walks in here needs to know. We're about restoring the dignity of every single person, no matter how broken, how much maybe they've screwed up their lives, or how much other people have screwed up their lives. We are here to help restore their dignity in God's name. And so from the very beginning, that was at the heart of how we treat every single person who comes through the door. And so, one of the things that we had to overcome was, how do you deal with people who are being rude to you? Because sometimes people are rude. Sometimes people are grumpy with you. Maybe they've had a bad day. Maybe they're off the meds. Maybe they just are grumpy people, right? So how do you respond? What if they are rude to you? Well, you can choose. You can either say, hey, don't be rude to me, which is what a lot of people do. Or you say, okay, I'm going to keep treating you with respect and kindness, even though you've just been rude to me. That doesn't mean you don't set healthy boundaries. You set healthy boundaries. And so there are times that I'll have a conversation with somebody who has been rude, and I'll say to them, rude to one of my members of staff, for example, and I'll say to them, the way you spoke to them, or the way you said that, I think you hurt their feelings, and I think you were not treating them with respect and kindness. And we are always treating you with respect and kindness. And I think maybe you need to say you're sorry to that person, which sounds kind of silly, but at the end of the day, conflict can sometimes lead to a better relationship. So by stepping up and saying, actually, this wasn't okay, but doing it in a gentle way, in a loving way, you're inviting them to grow. You're inviting them to say, oh yeah, you know what, I was wrong. And so every time I've done that to somebody, they have come back, and it sometimes takes a couple of weeks, but they've come back and said, you know what, I was wrong and I'm sorry. At which point my staff, and I work with my staff on this and say, you know, we are Christians, we are called to forgive. We are called to turn the other cheek. And so when they come to apologize, make sure you show them that forgiveness. And they do. And so they say, hey, you know what, it's all right. You know, I forgive you. And so, but you see, it gradually creates this place where, yes, people are being expected to behave with respect both ways, but it's not done in a authoritarian or demanding way. It's just done in a, you know what, we're here to be kind and loving to one another, and this is the expectation. And you know, and what I love is that people, you know, often when people are going through a hard time or they're on the streets, there's a kind of a very aggressive, you know, front, because people are afraid or they're nervous or they want to act tough to show everybody, you know, you back off me. But giving them a space that's safe where they are treated with great respect, with love. You know, when people come and say, do you happen to have a sweater or a coat? You know, we always say, absolutely. Well, what color would you like? Or what, you know, what kind of sweater? Do you want a hoodie or do you want a... And they go, oh, it doesn't matter, just anything. They'll say, beggars can't be choosers. Like, number one, you're not a beggar. And number two, you absolutely can choose. What's your favorite color? And people are like, it kind of takes them aback that somebody's treating them like maybe they were treated by the grandma when they were a child, or maybe they were treated by somebody who once cared for them. And it seems to melt the hard shell, and you start to see the real person coming back out. You're reminding them that they have value. You're reminding them that they are precious in God's sight, even if life has tried to beat that truth out of them. Yes. So, I mean, I don't know if that explains it, but no. That's kind of at the heart of, and I think the fruit we're seeing is a really wonderful family that's starting to grow.
You described it perfect. It's using basic humanity, basic, you're caring for people, you're showing them kindness. It's peaceful confrontation. Because I like how you said that, you know, a disagreement or a discord can sometimes lead to two people, a friendship blossoming. It could be that rich soil that just needs to be tilled. But peaceful confrontation is one thing you were saying, making sure that, hey, we are going to set our boundaries, because the first boundaries we're setting is we're going to treat everybody with respect and kindness. So once we treat everybody with respect and kindness, the only other boundaries is let's follow that. Let's follow the respect and kindness. And if somebody steps outside of that, we're not going to admonish that person. We're not going to throw them away. We're going to address it in a peaceful way, address it in a progressive way, so we can still maintain a friendship or build a friendship if need, build some kind of kinship, so we can help. Because in order to help somebody, they have to allow you to help them. And you have to have the ability and the willingness to help them. If those two can come together, you can help people.
Absolutely.
So, like, I love everything that you're saying, because it just warms my heart that people, you know, saying, are showing people. Because I always say, and me and Joe always say when we go out, everybody's one paycheck away from being homeless. The way people look, and you treat people with respect and how you want to be treated. So, are there any events coming up? Do y'all do events at Grace Mission and things that people can take part in and help up? Because I'm really interested in trying to bring our mobile unit out there and see what we can do, as, you know, saying different things, especially with the nursing students that we work with. That'll be a good thing to come out and do blood pressure, glucoses, and it'll give the upcoming healthcare professionals a insight of what community health is, because a lot of people do not know what community health is. They think it's their bookwork, and they go there, and then when they get outside, they be like, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be like.
Right.
So do y'all have any events or anything coming up with?
So we Matthias, every third Thursday is sort of a regular slot where it's a wonderful time to bring in those kind of resources. It's over the lunch hour from 11:30 to 1. But having said that, we have had medical students come in from the School of Dermatology, for example. I don't know, nursing, I'm not sure which, but anyway, from FSU, we've had some students come in who have given out sunscreen and given, hats and explain some of the basic kind of how you protect your skin when you're outside all the time, which of course is the case for a lot of our folks. We also have on our board a couple of professors from the FSU School of Nursing. And so it definitely is something that we want to be able to do. What you're saying, we used to do that. We used to have regular blood pressure tests and all that kind of thing. We would love to have you come, and we can certainly work on a time where that happens regularly. We recognize that we are a place that serves people, but we also serve those who come to volunteer. We have a lot of FSU students come through. I hadn't mentioned this quite simply because it's not a big surface. It's quite a small thing that we do. But Grace has always had a children's program and served a lot of children, especially from the Joe Louis area and just around close by. We have that on Tuesday afternoons. Again, it's not a big youth group kind of thing. It's a smaller thing where we do, and that is run entirely by FSU students and graduates, recent graduates. So it's headed up by a young woman who has just completed her master's in social work. And she brought on students who are in education, who are in speech therapy, who are in social work. And they do a lot of different things like one-on-one tutoring with their homework. They do things like emotional intelligence work. The older children, the ones who are sort of 5th, 6th grade, 7th grade, will prepare the meal each evening with our chef, and he teaches them how to cook so that they can go home and they can cook. And so I love being able to bring in students and young people to shape their hearts and minds for the future, to expose them to people in need and to help them see that they can actually do something for other people. Who knows, they may be touched to spend their whole lives doing something like what you do at the community center. So it would be wonderful to have you and other groups come in and help us, but by doing so, being very much impacted and blessed themselves.
We will be there.
We will.
You to the two who can get us there, and we will be there.
That's
because,
great.
like I said, we especially in March, we're going to be working with FAMU nursing students, and then oh shoot, I pressed the wrong button. I'm sorry, but in March, sorry, my hands are everywhere. But March we have the FAMU nursing students, and then coming back in the fall, we will have FAMU and FSU nursing students.
Fantastic.
So we will definitely be there. So we're going to talk more after this because I want to make sure we get you on our schedule, because we have to schedule out different locations. We want to make sure we get you on there. So my question is, you mentioned that you are a church who serves your community, and in serving the community, especially the people that you serve, being that you're faith-based, from your observance and your experience, how does helping to enhance the faith of the people that you serve, how does that help them improve overall from what you've noticed?
Well, I think a lot of people who come, and let me be clear, we are a church and we serve everybody. And we have people who come to church on Sunday faithfully and then stay for the meal. And we have those who come faithfully at the end of church for the meal. And that's okay. You don't have to come to church to get a meal. If you want to show up on Wednesdays when we have Bible study, but you don't want to stay to Bible study, that's okay. We'll give you some food, So we're not trying to ram our faith down anybody's throat. But what we have, our faith, is the most precious thing we have to offer. And so what we don't have power to do, we see God doing in people's lives. So I can serve you a hot meal and I can give you clothes. But at the end of the day, it's when I've seen people come for clothes, grown men come for clothes. And at that point where I am saying to them, hey, what do you need? What would you like? I've had them burst into tears because they have maybe for years not had anyone show them any kind of love. And it's almost like at that point, that what I see is God bringing some healing into their hearts because we have shown them his love in a very practical, tangible way. And they somehow, it ministers to them in a deeper place than just, oh, now I'm warm. It somehow touches a very deep need to be loved, to be valued, to be honored, all of which came, as I told you, that foundational verse that I shared with you earlier. We pray with people. When we pray with people, we see people's lives changing. We often pray with people and they will start weeping as we pray for them, as God starts to touch them. And so we see them coming to a place of greater peace, even though their situation hasn't changed. That time of prayer often gives them a renewed sense of, okay, I'm going to be okay. I can trust God with this. I can, so it's about building their faith and giving them someone to hold on to who will never leave them or forsake them. So that's really a lot of what we do. And, people come and they grow as they grow in their faith, oftentimes they make decisions about their lives. So just a very simple example, Christmas 21, I'd been there for about 3 months and I preached a sermon and it was about Jesus, the Savior of the world. And as an example, just an illustration in the sermon that I gave, I was talking about how one of the parables where Jesus says, if you have a strong man who's got you tied up in his house, you need a stronger man to come in to set you free. And that's what Jesus did. Satan's like the strong man. Jesus is the stronger man who came to set people free. And I said the image that brings to mind is the image of the police officer with his knee on the neck of George Floyd. And I said, you've got to imagine that Satan has his knee on our necks. But imagine if a superior officer had arrived at that moment and told that police officer, get your knee off his neck, then it would have been a different outcome. And so that's an image of what Jesus does in our lives. So a woman was there listening to that sermon that night from 4th Avenue up near the store up there. And she had been a drug addict for 35 years. And, all the whole lifestyle that comes with that, tremendous suffering, very poor health, just a life that has gone to rack and ruin. And she came out that night and she said to me, I want to change. And then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from her and she gave me permission to share this. And she said, Deacon Rachel, it's me. I want you to know I'm at the Appalachee Center and I've got into a 9-month residential rehab. And she went on the 9-month residential rehab. We were praying for her every day. And we never heard anything from her and we couldn't contact her. And maybe about October, I get a phone call and she said, is this Deacon Rachel? I said, yes, it is. She said, it's so-and-so. She told me her name. And she said, you probably won't remember me. And I said, I have been waiting for your call. We have been praying for you every day. And she had graduated from the program and was going into a further year. And so that's the kind of thing we see. We see God transforming people's lives, whether it's turning from being mean and selfish and stealing and hurting others to recognizing that that's wrong and changing their behavior, or whether it's making a choice, you know what, I need help, I'm going to get help, I'm going to stop being an addict. And now she is staying on as an intern to help other people go through the same program.
That's great.
So
That's great.
yeah,
That faith through works, renewing and strengthening people's faith through works.
mm-hmm.
That's amazing, because like the story you just gave, there are, we've all had struggles in our lives.
Absolutely.
And of course everybody's struggling the same, but we've all had struggles. So we all have a sense of understanding of the difficulty that it can take to overcome some of the struggles that we have. But when you do see people who are able to overcome it, and then like you guys, you were in her corner. You gave her the spiritual and some of the tangible resources that she needed. That's amazing. Faith through works. That's the greatest answer ever.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like with that, like what are some of the goals that you have for this year for Grace Mission? Are there that we can maybe help achieve, or see how we can help further your program?
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. So we are continuing to expand one step at a time, what we're able to do, based in part on what we feel like God is calling us to do. And also, we don't want to double what's already available around. We are very keen to work with all the different organizations that are around. We're tiny. We can't do very much really in the grand scheme of things. But I'm hoping to develop more healing ministry at Grace this year, whether that be the practical kind of healing that you offer, or people with, I want to build more of a relationship with Appalachee and their facilities, but also in terms of ministering to people in prayer. So that's a very big goal for this year. I want to start, we have a lot of meetings where we have both men and women together, and I'm absolutely fine with that. But I feel quite keenly the need to provide some spaces where the women can come together and deal with some of the things that are bringing them down, and then also the men separately. So that's one of my goals. I want to expand that marketplace on Thursdays. I really do want to make it a place where we can make it as easy as possible for people to climb back out of whatever, trough in the road they find themselves in. That I would love to be able to do that. And just as I say, at the moment this year, I think for us, we're still getting certain pieces in place as far as our building and as far as streamlining everything we do to make ourselves as efficient as possible, but also in terms of bringing in the right volunteers. So I would love to have you on a regular basis at Grace, but also to have more information to be able to send people your way as needed.
Yes, that's going to happen. Similar like our relationships with other community-based organizations or even other private entities around in the city, we pride ourselves on availability, because we know availability is one of the greatest abilities, but availability, making sure we are a resource, and even if we can't provide that specific resource, being able to refer out. Definitely making sure we bring you into our loop. So I am going to add your email to my email list. So one thing that is going to do, everything we have going on, you will know about, especially our food drives, but also when our education classes that we do and our community outreach, we're going to make sure that we direct that toward you guys as well. Like I said, I've seen Grace Mission for a while, and it is a vital resource here in Tallahassee that we all need to support more. And so that's why meeting you at the Alternative Christmas Market, it was great. Just being able to help each other. I mean, that's what we're here for. we can't do it alone. And this is definitely a team sport, and helping each other. That's what we're here for. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So what's the best way that people can contact you or the Grace Mission?
So Grace Mission's phone number is 850-224-3817. And we have Grace Mission at gracemission.net.
Okay.
Easiest email address to remember.
gracemission.net.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so the location, the exact address is 303 West Brevard Street, Tallahassee, Florida 32301, and repeat the phone number 850-224-3817.
Yes.
So, Grace Mission. So let me make sure. Reverend Hill, Deacon Hill. Which one first?
No, that's fine.
Okay, cool.
I am Reverend, but Deacon is just the appropriate
Gotcha.
way. That's all.
Deacon Hill. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. So we definitely appreciate your time. We appreciate you giving us more information about Grace Mission, letting us into your world. And like I said, we're definitely going to be following up with you so we can get busy. We just have a lot of ideas and things that we like to do for our community. And you're right here.
And I'd love to hear them, Joseph. I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, so we definitely going to link up. So thank you again for your time and being a part of our podcast. This is what we do. We just want to make sure we do our part. So our audience, Deacon Hill.
Thank you.
You have been enlightened. So like you all know, before we close this out, remember that we are your healthiest podcast that you've ever heard. Mind Your Body and Soul, which is an educational podcast that focuses on all things health related to help our listeners learn more about various health topics and information they may not have access to. We seek to inform, empower, uplift, and mobilize our listeners to become the healthiest versions of themselves. www.nmcpodcast.com is our main website. www.neighborhoodmedicalcenter.org is our parental website. We're also available on Anchor, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and of course, right here on YouTube. So make sure you like this video, leave a comment, because the like and the comment definitely helps the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel so all of the future podcasts we have going on. And who knows? You never know what future collaborations we're going to have with Deacon Hill and that we can be able to show. So just stay tuned. Then we have a lot more for you. I'm Joseph Ward. He's Matthias Sweet. She's Deacon Hill. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
All right.